we've put together this webinar series, which I hope you'll be able to take back some useful information in your everyday practice. So as Maria had mentioned, we'll have our questions at the end. And as she said, type them in at any time and we'll get them at that particular time. So today, what we are going to focus on are two main objectives. We're going to look at how to determine the required thickness of a diaphragm based on serviceability and strength. And a lot of this, I'm sure, is going to be a review for you. We're going to look at what's required in the ASCE 318 code and apply it to diaphragms in particular. Then after that, we're going to get into how to determine the in-plane diaphragm forces due to all of those different effects shown on the right-hand part of the slide. So we'll spend very minimal time on wind, a little more on seismic, especially with, in case you haven't seen the new procedure, how to determine the diaphragm force, which is an alternative that popped up into the 2022 edition of the ASCE 7. We're going to go over that in detail. And then some of the other ones we'll just go over to, just present those in case you may not think about those and you have those in your particular structure and how to include them. So we'll get started then with the codes. First, all of the section numbers, figures, etc. that you see in the presentation today are going to be from the 2019 edition of ASCE 318. We're going to cover a lot in Chapter 12, which is the diaphragm chapter, for basically all seismic design categories. And in particular, we'll also look at Section 1812 when you have buildings assigned to seismic design categories C and above. Also, we're going to talk about some of the provisions in ASCE 7, and that'll be the 2022 edition. So any section numbers you see from these two particular references, those come from those particular years, those editions. Okay, let's get started with diaphragm thickness. And like I mentioned, we're going to take a look at what's in the ASCE 318 code. Refresh your memory if you haven't designed in concrete for a while, just to give you an idea of how to come up with the diaphragm thickness very quickly. One thing I did want to mention that unless you have some very particular needs for your diaphragm, what we obtain from serviceability and strength for gravity loads is more than likely going to be okay for your diaphragm as well in terms of overall